Welcome back to this week's episode of the State of Recruiting, your weekly Horns 24/7 recruiting podcast. I'm Mike Roach, and I'm joined as always by Nick Harris. And we've got a big show. It has been, we're recording this on Wednesday. It feels like this week has lasted 30 days so far. Nick, how's it going?
You couldn't have said it better. Yeah, for sure. I think I've gotten like a total of 8 hours of sleep this week, but hey, it's all in the spirit of it, right?
It's that time of year for sure. It's a time of year where we're getting down to crunch time in the recruiting class. Signing day is coming soon. And this year has just so happened to have been the craziest coaching carousel I think I've ever seen. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the transfer portal, the recruiting rundown. Of course, we'll get to our Texas high school football picks. So let's go right into it. Let's start with the portal because Monday was Portal Monday, and it got going, and it got going hot and heavy. A lot of big names going in there, especially from Oklahoma, where we'll get into a little later how that Lincoln Riley situation is going to affect recruiting. But when you look at Theo Weiss, Jaden Hazelwood, Austin Stogner, and a potential Marvin Mims entry, you're talking about four of the key pieces from one of the most explosive offenses in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it caught everybody off guard. The move for Lincoln Riley to USC, including the players, and the transfer portal craziness that we expected to happen on Monday just amplified with the coaching change in Oklahoma. With all these players going in, and I expect more throughout the week. By the time we drop this podcast, I'm sure there's going to be one or two more big names that are going to be coming out of Norman in the portal. So. It's a wild time, and it's something I haven't seen, and I don't think we've ever seen, just because of the nature of the portal today and the free one-time transfer rule, how that can change things. It creates a whole free agency here in college football and creates a whole nother aspect to our jobs too. So it's really interesting, and it's going to be wild at how it shakes out.
Not only the Oklahoma guys, those are kind of the big stories because of the way Oklahoma's class is kind of going. But there's some really big names just in general going into this portal. Of course, Texas has lost a couple. Avante Woodard, the latest to go in earlier this year, Terrence Cooks and Joshua Moore. And I would expect there to be a lot more portal movement from Texas for guys going out. It seems like Sark's really going to try to probably trim that roster and have some frank conversations with guys about where things stand and where their future is. But if you look at the 24/7 Sports Transfer Portal Tracker, which I think does the best job, shout out to guys like Chris Hummer and guys like that who track this stuff for us. If you look at that, some massive names in there. One name sticks out to me, Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Georgia Tech, who I got to see in high school at the All-America game. He was a lot of fun to watch there. And now in the portal after a massive year at Georgia Tech. You look at Zach Evans, Elias Ricks from LSU, Dylan Gabriel from Central Florida. I mean, there are some massive names. Jake Hayner just went in there. I think everybody thinks he's going back to Washington. But, yeah, this is going to be the season for it. And so, Nick, if you are Texas and you've got your shopping list out here, where are you really looking for help in the portal?
Offensive line, 1,000%. And I would probably say a veteran DB next year would be very, very helpful. It looks like they're going to have to kind of revamp in the secondary next year, and having a veteran that can come in and not only be a leader, but be really good on the field. I think that's going to be crucial. We'll see, Jade Barone. I believe Darion Dunn is back next year as well. So those are kind of some upperclassmen type guys. But, to bring in, some veteran experience in the secondary, I think would help a ton. But on the offensive line, that's the most obvious need. Bringing in, a guy, whether it be from a Power 5 school or from a G5 who has played really well, throughout his career and is looking for a new home. I think getting anybody, whether it be outside or interior, it would be beneficial at this point.
Yeah, offensive line, DB, of course. I think they got to find some help at receiver there somewhere, and then linebacker. Those are really the key parts. If you can find a guy, maybe you find a Jahmyr Gibbs. If Jahmyr Gibbs wanted in, running back's not really your problem, but you do have a need for a playmaker like him in this offense. But I think you've got to address those needs first and make sure you've done everything you can to check off what you absolutely need before you go luxury hunting for a guy like that. Um, I would say that from what I've heard, this isn't going to be the last. This is just the first wave. Remember that we're going to see another wave after the bowl games. And then, I think we can see another wave after conference championship games this weekend. Another and that would be a smaller one. Another wave over after the bowl games, and then in spring of next year, we'll see a wave after spring practices. And so, this is just the first the kind of the first group of guys going in. Um, let's jump into a little bit of a recruiting rundown. The coaches are out on the road this week. It has been crazy. Um, let's start with the coaching carousel stuff. Sunday, the news broke that Lincoln Riley was leaving Oklahoma for USC. I think everybody had looked at LSU as the potential suitor for Riley, and all of a sudden he's going to California, and with him, he kind of pulled out the guts of that Oklahoma program on the way. I thought almost I don't know if it was purposely as ruthless as he did it, but man, it was pretty ruthless the way it went down. Um, for Texas, they're trying to capitalize on that. And one big one is Kobe Mckenzie, a linebacker from Lubbock Cooper, who's been committed to Oklahoma since he was a sophomore in high school. Texas moved quickly, got in contact, evaluated him, and got a new offer out to him. And Kobe has been spoken very highly and very favorably of Texas. Talked to a source again this morning who still expects Kobe to visit this weekend. So I think for Texas, this is an important player at position wise, finding that linebacker, but B, what a way to kind of take advantage of your rivals' downfalls.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a best case scenario for Texas. Me and you were just talking last week that we probably didn't expect Texas to take any more high school linebackers in this class. And now we look up, Kobe Mckenzie is on the board, and, a very high possibility. I mean, he's a guy we both already put crystal balls in for. This is a dream scenario for Texas to be able to land a talented linebacker. Also from, an area of the state where more and more talent is starting to come out of, especially, with the 23 class looming. There's going to be a lot in West Texas. But it's not only Kobe Mckenzie, but Xavieon Bryce, the athlete from Arlington Seguin. He's somebody that's going to be taking an official visit, not this weekend, but next weekend. He'll be at Texas Tech this weekend, and then he'll come for an official visit at Texas on December 10th. So they're trying to take advantage in multiple ways. And they're not the only schools trying to do it. Kip Lewis is starting to hear from a lot of in-state schools. And some of the commits have already, hopped off board, especially the ones out in Los Angeles. I think the only one in the Los Angeles area now that's still committed is Deandre Moore. So, that talented 2023 class that Oklahoma had, a week ago has been completely gashed now and basically transferred over to USC. It's an incredibly unfortunate situation for, the people up in Oklahoma. And, I would have to imagine they have to get a head coach in here really quick just to kind of save face here before the early signing period and bring some of these guys back in. Because, the longer they wait, I think the higher chance they have of losing these guys before December 15th.
Yeah, and it sounds like I was perusing OU Insider this morning, and looks like I guess they're expecting an announcement sometime soon. I know Brent Venables has been the hot name there, but yeah, they've got to stop the leaks at some point. For Texas, also the mission this week: find offensive linemen, find them wherever you can go. Kyle Flood has been out and about. In-home visits are going on for all the staff, but Kyle Flood has been all over. He is, by the time you guys see this on Friday, he will have visited basically every big offensive line target on the board. Earlier this week, he was out at an in-home with Arlington Bowie offensive lineman Devon Campbell, went to his basketball game. I was also at the basketball game and saw him and Coach Banks there talking with Campbell's mother. I think they're doing a great job there. Talked to a source near Campbell and asked them, if you had to put money on it right now, what do you think? And they said Texas. So I still think Texas is in a really good position there. And then it's about kind of capitalizing on some guys who are out there, Malik Agbo or Cam Dewberry, and then seeing if you could try to flip some of these other guys, Cameron Williams and Kelvin Banks, and stay working on those guys. A source I talked to at Texas told me we'll take as many of them as want to come. So I wouldn't worry about the numbers at this point. I think that they want to build this thing in the trenches as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle Flood's been really active this week and going out and seeing his targets, across multiple states. You mentioned today as we're recording, he's out in Washington seeing Malik Agbo. On Thursday, seeing Cam Dewberry and Kelvin Banks as well at some point later in the week. I mean, they're going to do everything that they can to, pull in these elite guys. If I had to sit here and, think about it right now, I think Devon Campbell, as you said, probably a pretty good chance Texas lands him. Cam Dewberry, I think it's going to be a fight between Texas and Texas A&M down the stretch. We'll see who has the better pitch. I think we're getting close to Cam Dewberry commitment time before he signs on December 15th. So that's going to be one to watch closely. You mentioned Malik Agbo as well. With the Oklahoma coaching change, that definitely helps Texas in that sense. But Auburn looked to be the prime competitor before then, and Texas has really made up a lot of ground. And if you've been paying attention to any of the Derek Brown Instagram live sessions this week, Malik Agbo has been a frequenter, throughout. So he's been getting acclimated with the commits as well. Just kind of looking around the rest of the offensive line, being able to flip either Cameron Williams or Kelvin Banks. If you just get one of those guys, I feel like that's going to be a big win, in state, regardless of who it is. Obviously, Kelvin would be the higher talent level, and I think that would be the bigger storyline. But just getting one of those guys, I feel like would be, very beneficial for Kyle Flood, and just being able to pull someone away right before signing day. That's something you want to see as a fan of recruiting, and a fan of recruiting from the staff.
Let's go to wide receiver. Big blow to Texas class this week when five-star Evan Stewart committed to Texas A&M. Checked with a source early in the week, literally on the day he committed, who told me, Evan's really confused right now. It wouldn't surprise me to see him just push everything back and go to February and take his time. And then lo and behold, out of nowhere, he commits to A&M, which was kind of how I was always told it would happen, just kind of out of nowhere. If you recall, the first time it was kind of out of nowhere when he committed to Texas. And so I think, for Texas, that's a huge blow. That's a guy they absolutely wanted. What's left on the board at wide receiver for them? Matthew Golden and Xavieon Red are the in-state guys. Xavieon Red, a new offer. And I think Texas can make a move there, although he is still communicating with SMU, where he was previously committed, at TCU to the staff he was previously committed. And then can Texas close with Shaz Preston? And I think that's where we'll go kind of into our next coaching movement. Is everybody with Shaz Preston has been watching to see what's going to happen with the LSU job. Well, LSU made their announcement. They hired Brian Kelly away from Notre Dame. Can Brian Kelly and his staff mobilize on the ground quick enough to sign Shaz Preston and keep him home? Alabama's a big threat there. Georgia's been in the picture. Or can Texas make this furious push down the line with playing time to offer? And, Shaz did love a lot of what he saw about Austin and Steve Sarkisian's offense. So wide receiver, I think, going to be one of the more fascinating positions down the stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious to see if the staff, decides to pursue any other options, because, this 22 receiver class is actually pretty deep here in the state of Texas. There are some options. You would have to flip a guy, I think, at this point if you wanted to, go after. But you look at guys like, Jordan Neighbors from Rockwall Heath, DJ Allen from Gladewater, even Major Everhart from Amarillo Tascosa. There's definitely some options around the state that fit Steve Sarkisian's offense. So I'm curious to see if they go after anybody else. But looking at the targets that are already on the board, Matthew Golden, I feel like, Texas is in a really good spot there. They're going to host him for an official visit. Is that this weekend or next weekend?
They don't have it yet. It's not confirmed yet.
Okay, gotcha. But they're expected to host him for an official visit at some point. And then you mentioned Xavieon Red as well. I think if Texas can just get him on campus, I think that would be huge. But I think the receiver class ends up shaking out, in a good state. Obviously, you would have wanted Evan Stewart. But you take what you can get at this point, and having a class with Brennan Thompson at the top, and maybe Matthew, even if it ends up with Matthew Golden and Xavieon Red, I still think that's a pretty good take.
Here's some other things to watch. I've heard that things aren't entirely dead with Armani Winfield. There has been some talk back and forth between both sides. Winfield decommitted last week during the game. I think the way he decommitted wasn't great, and that's kind of stalling a few of the talks between both sides. But there is still an option there for Winfield as well. And then I think maybe you'll see them get active for guys in the second, what I call the second cycle. After December's done, the push to February, find some backup plans. One guy I guess I would keep an eye on is Caleb Douglas from Fort Bend Hightower, just decommitted from USC. Interesting player. A lot of tools, big physical kid, but can also run a little bit. So that's a guy. There's a few guys I think they might circle back to. Neighbors, you mentioned, is one of them. So if those guys, we'll keep an eye kind of on who doesn't sign in this early period and who could be up for grabs down the stretch. All right, Nick. Anything else on the big? Here's what we need to touch on: quarterback Devin Brown. It's been a back and forth battle. I think coming out of my trip to Utah, I really liked where Texas sat. And then he visited Ohio State, had a really good trip there. But sources were telling me that, the stacked room in Ohio State was kind of working against him a little bit. Well, Jack Miller, one of their quarterbacks, has already gone in the portal. Bill Karelic of Bucknuts.com, who does a fantastic job covering the Ohio State site, reported last night, as we're recording this Tuesday night, that the in-home visit between Ryan Day, the staff, and Devin Brown couldn't have gone better, and that B, they are expecting a little more attrition out of that Ohio State quarterback room, whether that be Kyle McCord or Quinn Ewers. And if that does happen, it really opens things up for Devin Brown, and I think makes Ohio State a very deadly opponent for Devin Brown. Texas will get the chance to fire back. They sent AJ Milwee out on Sunday. Steve Sarkisian only gets one one in-home visit. That will be this Sunday coming up. And so we'll see kind of if Texas can swing back and land a blow there. But I think this one's getting interesting coming down the stretch.
A question for you that I think you would have a little bit better perspective on. Let's say they don't get Devin Brown in this 2022 class. How do they kind of, manage the portal? And do you think they jump on a guy early or kind of wait and see what their options are? Or do you think they stick with Casey Thompson and Hudson Card? What's your perspective on that?
I feel like if the right guy's in the portal, they'll jump on him. And I think, if Kyle McCord is that guy, or obviously I think if Quinn Ewers is in the portal, he could be that guy as well. There are a few other names. I'm really watching to see what happens with Jackson Dart at USC. And if that's a guy that Lincoln Riley wants to try to keep around. I know there's been some rumors there. If Caleb Williams transfers to USC or Rattler ends up at USC or something, does Jackson Dart want out at that point? That's interesting. That's the very interesting one to me. I think that's the domino that if it goes, I could see Texas getting really aggressive with. They're not going to take a guy just to take a guy, but I do think they want another body in that room to compete in the spring. And maybe we'll see where it goes from there. But I think they're kind of being choosy at this point in time with their quarterback options. All right, let's move on to our game picks. Guy Frazier will not be joining us today. He says he's a little under the weather. So we have received his picks. We have them in front of us here. I've got the games. If you are listening on the podcast, we are going to come back after a visit from our sponsors. And if you're watching, just hang with us here. Let's get into these game picks. Nick, last week, a disastrous week for yours truly. 1-4 loss. I don't have I think I have the games in front of me. Let's see. We had, you know what? I can't remember them. All I can remember is I won one of them. It was a bad week. What does 1-4 put me at in our race here?
That puts you at 4-6. Let's see. Guy last week went 4-2. That puts him at 7-4. And I'm not entirely sure what I had last week because I don't remember our games.
Okay, we'll have to go back and consolidate the records after this. I know one of them was Alito Sock, and you doubled on Alito.
That's for sure. I remember that happening.
That's 2 down. Actually, you know what? If you give me a second here.
I have it right here, actually. Okay. I had Duncanville 1-0. I did not get Westfield. so 1-1. I got Colleyville Heritage 2-1. Doubled down on Aledo and lost 2-3, and then I picked Chapel Hill last week to go 3-2. So I was at 3-2 last week, which puts me at 5-6.
No. You were 3-3.
You're right. I was at 3-3. So that puts me at 5-7. So you are at 4-6. I'm at 5-7. Guys at 7-4.
So rough week for all of us.
Yeah.
And a rough week for your Heath Hawks, losing to Tomball Memorial. Just a quick story time for the pod here.
Oh, boy.
I covered the first game at the Star on Friday, and it was Denton Geyer in a dogfight against Byron Nelson in a game nobody expected to be a dogfight. And then Nick showed up, and I was just talking about, man, Geyer's really Nelson pushed him to the limit. And Nick was like, so what you're saying is he's got a way easier path to state now. And I said, Nick, they got to make it to see Geyer first. And lo and behold, they could not get by Tomball Memorial
just Tomball High.
Just Tomball High. So rough week for old Nick. He was down bad after the game.
Down horrendous. I was sitting there interviewing Deldrick Madison actually after the game, and I had the computer right next to me, just kind of watching out of the corner of my eye, and that's when the game just kind of sealed its fate. And you can almost hear my tone in the interview just change. It was bad night.
Rough day for Nick, who earlier this year was talking about the possibility of 2 Rockwall teams making a state run. So all your teams are dropping, Nick. You've only got 10 left that you can really hang your hat on.
Hey, I'm putting all my faith into the Chapel Hill Bulldogs now out of 4A D1. That's where I went to elementary school. That's where a lot of my family is from. A lot of my family was on that 1989 state championship team when they beat A&M Consolidated. So let's go Dogs.
Hey, Jeff Reardon's an awesome dude. I
Absolutely.
love nothing more than to see Chapel Hill win state. All right, let's jump into these game picks this week. We will start with the big one. It is a massive week of high school games. Obviously, regional final weekend is always like that. This is the name brand game of the week. I mean, it is as Texas high school football big school as it gets, as Allen will take on South Lake Carroll in the regional final, 2 p.m. Saturday, Denton Apogee Stadium on North Texas campus. Allen 11-2, South Lake comes in an undefeated 13-0, but Allen is rounding into great form at this point. I'm going to do my best guy impression here to both host the pick and also give you the pick first. Allen is rounding into great form. I mean, they pulverized their competition last week up against Trinity. They're really starting to play kind of like how we anticipated them to play. South Lake Carroll still being South Lake Carroll, though. I mean, what they did to Louisville last week, with Louisville coming out of an impressive win over Arlington Martin, I think both these teams are cooking. Here's the potential things I'm looking for. Allen has, in my opinion, the advantage on both front lines. I think they've got a better offensive line. I think they've got a better defensive line. If those lines can impose their will, I think Allen can pull the upset here. I'm picking South Lake Carroll. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Allen with the upset. I'm picking South Lake Carroll for the reason of I think that they've just got a little more firepower. I think they will be able to withstand kind of those front lines. And if Allen had a guy, I love Jordan Tyson. I think he's awesome, their receiver. I love Jalen Jenkins. If they had another guy who just scared the daylights out of you as an offensive playmaker, I would probably roll with Allen here. I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a classic, but I got South Lake Carroll.
Yeah, you mentioned a name brand game. This is Coke versus Pepsi, Netflix versus Hulu, Apple Music versus Spotify, you name it. Allen versus South Lake Carroll, 2 of the biggest 6A names in the state of Texas for much of the last 1 to 2 decades. So this is a lot of fun and being played at UNT's Apogee Stadium. Really cool venue, especially for a high school playoff game. I'm going to roll with South Lake Carroll as well. You did mention Allen has been on a tear here in the playoffs. I figured U.S. Trinity would give them a game last week. That didn't happen. U.S. Trinity actually beat them last year in the playoffs, and they didn't stand a chance last week. And Allen has been rolling through opponents. They look much different than they did in the regular season. But the difference here is South Lake Carroll's looked like this all season. So I'm going to take the Dragons. I think they move on. I feel pretty good about their chances to make it back to Arlington as well.
Yeah, that was my state pick, so I'm going to go with them. And Guy's also going with the Dragons as well. So three of us. All right, let's move on to our second game of the week. Saturday night, 7 p.m. at the Ford Center in Frisco at a game I'll be at. Nick, I guess you'll give us your schedule here in a bit. I don't know where you're going to be Saturday.
I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there.
Nick will be there as well. Duncanville, DeSoto. South Dallas is going to be out and about in Frisco this weekend with the doubleheader at the Star. We don't have the other game on the schedule, but just for you guys to be aware, 2 p.m. we've got Sock versus Lovejoy, 7 p.m. Duncanville, DeSoto. It's going to be wild in Frisco Saturday night. Duncanville 11-1, DeSoto 11-2. I think a lot of people, including me last week, left DeSoto for dead. May have said, this Westfield team's a tough team. We're worried they're going to punch them in the mouth. Maybe DeSoto can't answer. And DeSoto really went out there and put out a dominant win against the Westfield team. I was thoroughly impressed with. And they get their chance to avenge one of their losses on the season. I was at Duncanville DeSoto in the regular season. DeSoto jumped out to an early lead in that game, and then the Duncanville defense just kind of did its thing. Here's what I'm looking for. From what I was told last week, Matt Allen, the DeSoto quarterback, went out of the game in the second half. DJ Bailey, their young star, came in and really tore it up. I want to see if they roll with DJ Bailey a little more. If they do, I think maybe something's there. I love the offensive weapons for DeSoto. Jonte Cook and Boogie Johnson and all those, even Jalen Bean. They've got a lot of guys. They've got a good front line. They run the ball well. They do all those things you want to see. And I think DeSoto's defense often gets way underrated. They've got a lot of team speed. They've got a playmaker in Devin Bobby in the back end. They've got some guys up front, including Caleb Mitchell, the Texas offer. I think that they get overlooked a lot. I'm going with the Panthers, and here's why. That defense, I've seen a lot of Duncanville teams. That defense last week is as good that we saw against a good spring team. A spring team with weapons and guys that could play was as suffocating as any Duncanville game I've ever seen. A Duncanville defense I've ever seen. I don't love the Duncanville offense, but I like it enough paired with that Duncanville defense. So I'm going to go with the Panthers here.
This is an interesting one just because this is the same regional final we had last year. A really heated rivalry down there in South Dallas. Quick story, you gave me the opportunity to talk about DJ Bailey here, the 2024 quarterback at DeSoto, so I'm going to. I was at a 7-on-7 tournament back in, I believe, early April in Durant, Oklahoma, put on by our good friends out of C4 and Sean Cooper. They do a great job training guys in the Texoma area. But they were putting on a 7-on-7 tournament in Durant, Oklahoma. And there were about 8 teams. And sure enough, DJ Bailey was there quarterbacking a team with kids I had never heard of before. It was kind of like a ragtag group of kids down in the South Dallas area. I was like, okay, cool. We'll be able to see DJ Bailey spin it a little bit, but as far as longevity and the bracket here today, because there were some good teams, I don't feel like maybe they'll make it deep. DJ Bailey led them to win that tournament by himself. He was throwing dots all day long. He might be undersized if you look at him and you're like, oh, this is the kid you're talking about. But watch him throw the football. He's really, really talented. If he gets the start on Saturday against Duncanville, I'm intrigued. But I think either way, Duncanville wins this game. That defense, like you said, is one of the best that they've had in recent years. And, before last Saturday night when they played spring, I wasn't quite sold on Duncanville, but I'm sold now. That defense is really, really good. And what's impressive is they're still really young. They're not going to graduate a lot of talent on that defense this year. You got 2023 guys like Deldrick Madison, 2024 guys like Colin Simmons on the defensive line, and Kadavian Dotson back in the secondary. And I know I'm missing a couple of others too, but it's a who's who in that secondary of talent. So I'm going to take Duncanville. I think that defense is just going to overwhelm them.
All right. Let me go to Guy's pick here. 1 sec. I believe he picked Duncanville as well. Yes, he picked Duncanville as well. Okay. So we're all in agreement through the first 2 games. Let's go to the third. The regional final Friday night, 7 p.m. at Waco's McLean Stadium on the campus of Baylor. 12-1 Denton Ryan will face 13-0 College Station. Both teams coming off. Well, College Station had the convincing win against Frisco Lone Star in round 2. A little tighter game against Frisco Wakeland that I don't think anybody really expected in round 3. Ryan, again, a big win in round 2, and then Nick, I think you were there. Longview pushed them to the limit in round 3. So both teams coming off a little shaky of a game. This has been everybody's been trying to see who's going to stop College Station. Could Denton Ryan do it? I think they have the defense to do it. Absolutely. The question for me is, what can Denton Ryan do offensively? Can they establish the run game? Can Kalen Davis make the throws he needs to make to keep that ball moving down the field? I don't know. And all week long, I have a hard time betting against Ryan. I really do. Every time I do, it seems to burn me, and I don't do it a lot. That said, I'm going to take College Station. It's been a back and forth discussion for me. I'm going to take College Station, and I got to do it. I'm going to double it on College Station. I've got to make a move here this week. I'm sure that the Sons of Ryan will make me regret this at some point, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Cougars.
Well, Mike, I'm in the boat with you. I'm doubling down on College Station. They were my state championship pick. I despite just a 10-point win over Frisco Wakeland last week, I still feel pretty confident that this College Station team is going to be the one to do it. So, give me the Cougars.
All right, and I think Guy is picking the Cougars as well, with just a no double, just a single. All right. Our fourth game in Friday at Lufkin's Abe Martin Stadium, 7:30 p.m. The 12-0 Texarkana Texas High Tigers taking on the 11-2 Crosby Cougars. Crosby's the Cougars, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. We'll just go with it. How about
that? Yes. In a game that I believe is a rematch of last year, Crosby, I think, shocked Texas High early in their run to a state final. This was a game we were originally going to go to. We called a late audible and are going to do something different. But I really like what Jerry Stanford's squad has been doing throughout the playoffs. I picked Texas High to win the region. Crosby is a team that nobody wants to see. They're nasty. They show up and they bust brackets. But I like what Texas High has, man. I love Brayson McHenry at quarterback, Braylon Stewart at running back, what they've got on defense with guys like Derek Brown, the Texas commit. I think they're going to get it done. I think that they are on a path of a little bit of destiny here. So give me those Texas High Tigers over Crosby.
Man, this is kind of a swing game. I feel like it could go either way. Texas High has looked really good. Crosby made it to the 5A Division II state championship last year, and was able to get out of this region unscathed. And they've looked pretty good for most of the year. Their 2 losses are to a defending state champion in Carthage and Manville, who is a classification above them. And they were able to keep that game pretty close. So this one's tough. I think I'm just going to pick Crosby just so we have a little bit of parity here, and a little bit of excitement this week. I want to take Texas High, but again, I just feel like this is a coin flip game. It's kind of hard to predict. I'm just going to take Crosby.
All right. And I believe Guy is – we keep getting texts in our group, so I keep losing the thing. He is picking Crosby as well. You hate to see it. Guy, thought you were a Texas High supporter. All right, our fifth and final game of the week, Thursday night at Victoria's Memorial Stadium, 7 p.m. Man, the game everyone's been looking for in this classification, 13-0 Shiner, 13-0 Refugio. It's a banger every time these two teams meet up. I don't know what Refugio's got. I know they're reloading with a little bit of younger talent. Shiner, of course, comes back with that dominant state title team they had last year, led by Doug Brooks and Dalton Brooks. I'm going to pick this game on one reason and one reason only. Shiner has the most fantastic helmets in the sport of football. And Doug Brooks is a ton of fun to watch. Give me the Comanches in this one.
I'm actually going to change my pick on the last game. Can I do that?
You're going back to T-High?
I'm going to pick T-High. I feel a little bit more confident in T-High.
No, you heard Guy was picking Crosby and you're trying to make a move.
Maybe not. I'm just going to pick T-High. How about that? Maybe I won't explain my reasoning. Going back to this game, Shiner and Refugio, I'm looking at both of their schedules right now, and there's a lot of goose eggs. Both of these defenses are really strong. I was at this game last year at the Alamo Dome in the regional final as well, and that was just a rock fight. I think it ended up being like 19-17. Shiner pulled it out at the end, something crazy like that. This one I will be at on Thursday night down in Victoria. Really, really pumped for it. I think it's going to be one of the better games I see all year, as it was last year. Man, I've been going back and forth on this. I'm going to pick Refugio here. They have, they're on a redemption run, and Shiner is a key part of that redemption run. They've been the storied program in the last decade in this classification. I think they finally get over this hump and beat Shiner. I'm taking Refugio.
All right, and Guy will be taking Shiner. That's it for our game picks. Nick, quickly, because my food just got delivered and it's sitting on my phone. Who'd you see last week?
Let's see. Last week, going back through my schedule, on Thursday, on Thanksgiving night, me and Guy Frazier made the trip down to Longview to see Dangerfield and West Rusk. Dangerfield is home to 2024 athlete offer, but more so secondary offer. Aaron Hampton. Man, he was really, really fun in that game. He played on both sides of the ball. It was really, really impressive in coverage. When they put the ball in his hands on offense, he was, finding ways to score. Really, really impressed with Aaron Hampton. Saw him actually at that same 7-on-7 tournament in Durant, Oklahoma, back in April. And looking at him now, his body is really starting to develop. He's starting to grow and mature. I'm excited for Aaron Hampton's future at Dangerfield. Dangerfield was able to pull that one out in the second half, pulled away, I believe, 150-28 over an undefeated West Rusk team. And then on Friday, let's see. I have Aledo Sock on my schedule, but that's not where I went Friday afternoon. Where did I go Friday? Oh, Denton Ryan and Longview. Went to Denton Ryan and Longview at Mesquite Memorial Stadium, checking in with five-star Anthony Hill at Denton Ryan, five-star Jalen Hale at Longview. There's, it was a who's who of guys on that field, and those were the two standout names. It was Denton Ryan was in control the entire game, but Longview made it really, really interesting in the fourth quarter. I believe they were down 33-14, and then came back and pulled to within 36-33 before the end of the game. It was something around, that area. And Longview had a chance to win it at the end of the game, but they went 4-out and weren't able to capitalize. But a really fun playoff game that was much different than when those two teams played in week one, and Denton Ryan won 40-7. So, shout out to Longview. They put up a really good fight. Then Friday night, me and Guy Frazier went out to Alvarado to see Marlin and Toller. Marlin is home to 2023 edge offer Darion Gullit, and boy, he was one of the most fun recruits I've seen this year. He plays on both sides of the ball as well, being a two-way school. Most of those schools do. But he's just a large presence. He's clearly different from everybody else at that level. He has over 1,000 receiving yards. I believe he's up over 500 rushing yards this year as well. He's doing it all for Marlin, and they're kind of on a Cinderella run here in the playoffs. It's been really fun to watch. They were able to beat undefeated Toller. They're moving on to the regional final. And then on Saturday night, I went and saw Duncanville and Spring. And again, we've talked about it already, but that Duncanville defense was really, really impressive. But I do want to point out one guy, Xavieon Dotson. I knew he was a stiff guy on that defense, but, man, I was really impressed with what I saw from him last Saturday. And Colin Simmons was probably my player of the game if I had to pick one last week. The 2024 defensive lineman was doing everything to disrupt Bishop Davenport, the Utah State quarterback commit for Spring. It was really impressive to see him play.
Pause. What did
I say?
A stiff guy. Nick, what do you have this week?
This week on Thursday, heading down to Victoria, as I said, to see Shiner and Refugio. Shiner is home to 2023 athlete offer Dalton Brooks, but he's starting to project as more of a safety. We'll kind of see how that shakes out over the course of the next year. But excited to see him again. Saw them in a scrimmage against Lowling earlier in the year. And it's actually kind of funny. I went and saw that scrimmage, and then the next day on Twitter, I got on Twitter, and there was a huge viral video going around of this 18-wheeler that was carrying a windmill blade in Lowling, Texas, and a train hit it. And it was just the most chaotic thing I had ever seen. But apparently it happened right after I was there. So Hopefully nothing crazy happens when I go see Shiner again tomorrow. But going to see Shiner against Porfirio, again, really excited for that game. On Friday, I am heading out to the Boot. I am seeing Warren Easton and Monroe Neville in Monroe. I am really excited about this one. It's a state semifinal out in Louisiana. Warren Easton is home to commit Ronald Lewis, goes by Champ Lewis. He's the corner. And then they also have an offer out to Wallace Foster, a 2024 corner, who is one of the more impressive guys I've seen all year. And then on the Monroe Neville side, they have two really impressive defensive linemen led by Lance Hurd, who has a Texas offer in the 2023 class. So we'll be able to see some Texas targets on both sides of the ball as well. That is my tentative plan, but I'm pretty sure that's where I'm going to end up on Friday. And then on Saturday, doing the doubleheader at the Star, really excited for it. Sock and Lovejoy in the afternoon, and then Duncanville DeSoto at night. I mean, those are self-explanatory. Those are both going to be a lot of fun, really good crowds. I'm really looking forward to that.
That's really great news that you're going to be at both games, because that means one of us can be on the field and the other can be in the booth.
Yes, facts.
All right. Quickly, because I also just got a low battery on my computer here, and my charger's in the other room. Last week, Friday, I went and saw Sock stun Alito at Mansfield's Newsom Stadium. Really fun game. It's awesome to see the run Sock is on right now. They're looking to keep it up this week. Guy and I are bound to Sock for the remainder of the playoffs. We've been at every one of their playoff games, and their coaches have told us they will murder us if we don't show up. So Sock. So that'll give you a hint on where I'm going Saturday. Sock and Lovejoy. Friday night, I did see Lovejoy in their game, and take down Mansfield Timberview. I was blanking on who they played. In a really fun back and forth game where Lovejoy a little beat up, but still that, well-coached team, very tough. They came through. Peyton Pierce was the guy that really kind of did it all. I think a guy that is very much on Texas' radar. And then Saturday at the Star, got to see Denton Geyer and Byron Nelson. Geyer's a lot of fun, man. They got a lot of dudes. The Bowen brothers are awesome. Eli and Peyton Bowen. Peyton Bowen was, for me, the best player I saw on the weekend. And, talking to him afterwards, he doesn't have too much interest in Texas. I think that they need to do everything they can to remedy that and try to get in with him. And then Saturday night, got to see Duncanville and Spring. Like we mentioned, that Duncanville defense is nasty. Echo all your thoughts on Kadavian Dotson, Colin Simmons, and all those guys. So we'll see kind of how it holds up this week. All right, Nick, anything to add before we get out of here today?
I just want to add, everybody's throwing out their Spotify Wrapped on Twitter. Hey, if our lovely podcast, which is very poorly rated, it made it onto your Spotify Wrapped, go ahead and tweet it out, tag us. That'll automatically get a retweet and maybe a follow out of me if you're lucky. So,
is our podcast poorly rated?
Yeah, very poorly rated.
On Spotify?
No, I was just joking. But no, yeah, tweet out your Spotify Wrapped if any of our Horns 24/7 podcasts made it on there. So we'll show you some love if y'all show us some love.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you to Nick Harris. Thanks usually to Guy Frazier, but he's not here. Thanks to Taylor Estes for making this whole thing work. For Nick, I'm Mike Roach. We'll see you guys next week.